Hello everyone, a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining me here on Level Up Daily, a channel dedicated to personal growth and holistic development through the wisdom of books. Let me begin with a question. Have you ever had a day where you felt completely alive, deeply focused, and at your absolute best? Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, sit down to work on a crucial task, and for hours you are absorbed in it. You lose track of time, you don't even notice fatigue, and you finally finish, you're overwhelmed by a sense of joy and accomplishment. Or picture yourself reading a book that you truly love. You turn page after page, so immersed that the world around you disappears, as though time itself has stopped. When you put the book down, your heart is full of happiness. This magical state of being has a name. The Hungarian psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, often pronounced Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, closing parenthesis, called it flow. He described it as an optimal experience, a state where your entire being is completely absorbed in what you are doing. In flow, every thought and action connects seamlessly, like a river moving effortlessly forward. Your potential rises to its peak, and you access a version of yourself that is powerful, creative, and fully alive. If you are on a journey of self-improvement and personal mastery, I genuinely believe that understanding flow is not just useful, but essential. Why revisit the book Flow? Some of you might be thinking, wait, didn't Level Up Daily already talk about this book before? And you'd be right. But today's video is a special revisit, and for good reasons. First, many of you have written to me asking for deeper insights into how to apply flow in daily life. It's one thing to know what flow is, it's another to actually cultivate it as a daily practice. Second, flow is not just any book, it's a monumental work in psychology, the result of decades of research. Books of this magnitude are not meant to be read only once. Every time you revisit them, you discover new insights that resonate with your current stage of life. Lastly, my first video on this book was made in the early days of this channel. The audio quality wasn't the best, the explanations were short, and I feel you deserve a much richer, more polished experience now. If the first video focused mainly on happiness, this one will focus on how flow is the fastest path to self-development. So sit back, and let's explore Toga. The power of flow in real life. In his book Limitless, author Jim Quick, a world-renowned brain coach, conducted surveys with top executives. Most of them reported that when they entered their peak state, essentially flow, their productivity was 4 times higher than usual. Think about that. What normally takes 8 hours could be done in just 2. The book Flow itself shares many real-life stories, including the tale of 2 factory workers. Both worked on the same assembly line. The first worker found his job boring and meaningless. His mind constantly wandered. He worried about his broken bicycle tire, his unpaid bills, or the latest gossip. Distracted, he often fell behind, got scolded by his boss, and his career stagnated. The second worker, however, had a completely different approach. He saw each day as a challenge. Instead of chatting idly, he concentrated fully on each task. For him, installing a part wasn't just routine, it was a game. The average time to finish one unit was 43 seconds. Determined to improve, he practiced daily with absolute focus. Eventually he reduced his time to only 28 seconds, impressing his supervisors and receiving recognition. The lesson is clear: same environment, same job, but vastly different outcomes. The difference lay in mindset and focus. One man drifted in distraction, while the other entered flow. As the Russian educator Konstantin Ashinsky once said, concentration is the sole gateway to our inner world. Without focus, our inner life becomes chaotic. Psychologists call this chaos psychic entropy. When your mind is scattered, your sense of self fragments, and your effectiveness plummets. Flow, on the other hand, creates order and consciousness, restoring harmony and power. Deep work and flow. To cultivate flow, focus is the foundation. This is why books like Deep Work by Cal Newport complement flow so beautifully. Both emphasize the life-changing power of undistracted concentration. When you practice deep focus, you remove the knots of chaos in your life. You sharpen your abilities, increase your value, and most importantly, you rediscover happiness in the process. Cal Newport identifies 4 strategies to build deep focus. 1. The rhythmic approach: set fixed hours each day to work deeply. For example, 90 minutes every morning without your phone. Worries can wait. Write them down and promise yourself to return later. 2. The bimodal strategy: divide your schedule into periods of deep work and shallow work. For instance, 4 days a week dedicated to high-focus projects, and the remaining 3 days for lighter tasks. 3. The monastic strategy: withdraw from distractions almost completely, like monks who retreat into silence. This is best for creators, researchers, or writers who need extended immersion. For the journalist strategy, perhaps the hardest, but most powerful: train yourself to dive into deep focus anytime, anywhere, just as a journalist must write an article under tight deadlines. Personally, I found the journalist strategy transformative. Life today is fragmented. We juggle study, work, and responsibilities. Learning to switch on flow at will is like a superpower. Mindfulness as the door to flow. But how do we enter flow more easily? For me, the answer was mindfulness. Mindfulness is not about sitting cross-legged in silence. It's about being fully present in every ordinary act: eating, brushing your teeth, walking, even putting on clothes. And as your awareness is completely rooted in the present moment. I was deeply influenced by the teachings of Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. Through his books and daily practice, I trained myself to bring mindfulness into everything. When I felt tired, when anger arose, or when joy appeared. Slowly I realized that mindfulness was training my mind to focus naturally. And when focus deepens, flow emerges effortlessly. Interestingly, neuroscience backs this up. When you are mindful, dopamine, the molecule of motivation, works together with here and now molecules like serotonin and endorphins. This creates a positive loop. The more mindful and focused you are, the greater your satisfaction, which then motivates you to repeat the behavior. Wholehearted engagement. Another pillar of flow is wholehearted engagement. But here's the catch: not every task can bring flow. Flow happens only when the challenge level is just right. Not too easy, not too hard. Psychologists call this the sweet spot of growth, or the edge of your comfort zone. If the task is too simple, boredom takes over. If it's too difficult, anxiety sets in. But at the right level, you enter flow, time disappears, and action becomes effortless. What if you don't love your work? Some people object: that's only possible if I love what I do. But what if I hate my job? The truth is, while passion helps, it's not the only key. The book It's Worth Living reminds us, if you cannot change your destiny, at least learn to love your present work. Flow doesn't depend entirely on external circumstances. It depends on how you frame your experience internally. Even mundane jobs can be transformed if you choose to approach them with focus and positivity. Negative emotions like boredom and laziness often come not from the work itself, but from our perception of it. For example, legendary basketball player Michael Jordan once faced rejection from his high school team because he was too short. Yet, through relentless belief and practice, telling himself, "I will grow taller, I will make it," he rewired his identity and eventually became the greatest player of all time. This shows the power of constructive self-suggestion. What you repeatedly tell yourself shapes your actions, and your actions create reality. Flow and solitude. There is another, often overlooked gateway to flow: solitude. After decades of research, Mihaly found that people who can find flow in solitude are the most resilient. Consider the story of a woman in her 60s. After losing her husband and living alone on an isolated island, she fell into despair. Nights were filled with tears and loneliness. But slowly, she turned to the books her husband left behind, began writing her reflections, painting, and cultivating a small garden. To her surprise, these activities carried her into flow. Her grief softened, her inner strength grew, and even in solitude, her life became full of meaning again. Philosopher Paul Tillich once sighed, "Loneliness expresses the pain of being alone, and solitude expresses the glory of being alone." When we embrace solitude consciously, it becomes fertile ground for flow. Everyday gateways to flow. Flow is not limited to work or study. It can be found in simple hobbies: baking bread, hiking a mountain trail, learning to dance, gardening, or even repairing old furniture. These small but meaningful activities enrich your mind, soothe emotions, and restore balance. But there's a warning: joy used not turn into addiction. The pursuit of pleasure should not enslave us. Balance is key. Flow is about self-expansion, not escape. Art, movement, and the flow of life. Two powerful universal gateways to flow are art and movement. When you listen to music deeply, not as background noise but with full attention, something stirs within you. Your soul vibrates in harmony with the rhythm, and you slip naturally into flow. Movement is equally transformative. Sports, dance, or even a simple jog and dissolve stress and negativity. As sweat flows, so does your mind, leaving you light, present, and renewed. The book beautifully states, anyone who can persist through pain and failure will find life itself turning into a flow, a continuous stream of meaningful experiences. Conclusion: the journey to flow is not always easy. It requires patience, courage, and discipline. You will face boredom, solitude, and challenges. But if you set clear goals, engage wholeheartedly, focus deeply, and love what you do, then, step by step, life transforms. Flow is not just about being productive. It is about living fully. It is about turning every moment into meaning, every action into growth, and every day into joy. Thank you for listening. If you found value in this video, please share it with someone who needs it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next inspiring video. Once again, thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.